What's up, guys? Welcome to the Saturday show. On Saturdays, I like to go back through the week of news. We do all the Newswave shows throughout the week, every weekday morning at 8 a.m. And I like to see what you guys had to say about the different topics we discussed and then kind of answer them and respond to them. And it's a lot of fun. I have a good time doing it. We're going to start with some quick news, though. Some pretty interesting stuff. One, Crash Bandicoot has now made its way onto a Nintendo controller. Now, this isn't, I guess, as big a deal now, but if you were gaming during the PS1 and Nintendo 64 era, you'll kind of look at this and be like, well, that would never have happened back then. That's just how different games are now than they were then. Things change, and this is definitely something that has changed. Here is the controller that I'm talking about. It's actually from, of course, a PowerA type controller. It's being sold currently that I can see. It's taking reserves for GameStop. This is the typical controller that they've been doing with things like Zelda. I've seen Donkey Kong. I've seen Yoshi, different Nintendo characters on them. And it looks like they are doing a Crash Bandicoot controller. This is actually out at the end of this month, so the 29th of June, and it's going to be going new for $24.99. Now, of course, that's to coincide with the launch of the Insane Trilogy, which, of course, is the collection of Crash Bandicoot games that were originally only on the PS1, and now they're going to everything after being on the PS4 for about a year or so. They're now going to all platforms, Xbox, Switch, PC, but still, look at it this way, it's very weird to see that, right? To see Crash Bandicoot on a Nintendo accessory, especially like a controller or something. It's just odd after seeing him outside the Nintendo headquarters yelling with a megaphone. Also, some Xbox news. Game Pass, which I still say is like the best value in gaming right now. For $10 a month, you get a pretty good library of games, and they continue to add to it. In fact, they actually added 4 Star Wars games. They added Knights of the Old Republic, the one on the Xbox, the one I really like. Both Star Wars Force Unleashed games, so you have the first one and the second one. Those ones were, of course, from the Xbox 360. Then they also added a Lego Star Wars game. Pretty cool to see the Game Pass library growing. Of course, they do take games out, but it seems like they're putting quite a few in there. And for $10 a month, honestly, it's hard to not find that worth in that library. I really like the Force Unleashed 1. Force Unleashed 2 was okay, but see Knights of the Old Republic on there, you just kind of go on there, you download it, and you can experience it on the Xbox One S or X at a much better frame rate than it was on the original Xbox. Even the Windows version, you gotta really mod and patch to get it working correctly now with Windows 10, for example. Even Windows 7 was a pain. But that's some of the quick news, guys. Let's get into some of the week in Newswave and see what you guys had to say. On Monday, we talked about Sony accidentally posting the Mega Man 11 release date ahead of its reveal, which turned out to be correct at the beginning of October. We also went over the Sword Art Online producer showing a desire to put the series on the Switch. Mr. Pete 1985 says, calling it now, Mega Man 11, first stage on the cart, have to download all the other stages. So here's the good news. Looking at the cover art, I don't see any text that says you need to download anything. We used to look for that big white bar at the top on the Switch cover art and everything. But Capcom seems to have done away with that, and now it's like tiny little text that's kind of hard to see at the bottom. I haven't seen any on the cover art yet. Now, doesn't mean that they're going to do something where they have, some you have to download. However, I don't think this game is going to be like massive in terms of install size or anything when it comes to actually, on the PS4, for example, the Xbox One, or like I said, the Switch, you download it, and I don't think I'd be shocked if it was more than 5 gigabytes, I'll say that. I think they're going to be able to get this on like a 4 gig card or something. I don't think it's going to be a big deal, although Capcom is a little odd when it comes to that. The reason that the Legacy Collection, as much as I make fun of Capcom, they wanted that to be 2 SKUs, and they didn't want to put 2 cartridges in there, right? They didn't want to split it up that way, because that probably would have cost too much for a $40 game at retail. This is going to be a $30 game from what I've seen, so they're not even marketing as like a big, AAA release or anything. This is, I would say, I get what's the term, AA, I guess, that in-between type game. It looks fun, especially if you're a Mega Man fan, so I'm, of course, looking forward to it. But no, I don't think we're going to have to download anything if you get it on the Switch. And then, of course, Xbox One and PS4 and everything, you'll buy it. It'll be a Blu-ray disc. But I don't think we're going to get to that point. I think it'll be a smaller file size, and then you'll get a cart, or you just download it. Tuesday, we took a look at PUBG finally taking their shot at Fortnite. According to news out of South Korea, the company behind the extremely popular Battle Royale game will be seeking legal action against the arguably more popular game Fortnite, seeking copyright infringement. Jamie T says, PUBG sues Epic, loses, LOL. PUBG sues Epic, somehow wins. Epic takes Unreal Engine away from them. I don't see how Bluehole thinks they can win with this one. This is something that I did think about a bit, especially after talking about it, making that video. I thought about it. I was like, wait, PUBG uses the Unreal Engine 4, which is, of course, Epic's engine. They license that out to companies. And I don't know. I wonder if they would get to that point. Do you think Epic would be like, you know what? You can't use our engine. You know, you sued us. We're going to pull this engine away. And now what do? What are you going to rebuild that game? And honestly, if they rebuild it, it might just work better anyway. But I think at that point, Bluehole would consider just selling the rights to it to a company like a Microsoft, right? Because they... Honestly, with how that game is now, I don't think they want to rebuild it from the ground up, but another company might want to buy the rights to that name and then build it from the ground up. But I also don't know if Epic would do that. Even, that's the thing, even there usually is a lot of like fine print and paperwork in the background for licensing that kind of stuff, and I would be curious to see if there is something in there that says they can seriously take the license away from you for something like being sued. However, it's not a good idea to sue the company that runs the engine that your game is built on. That just seems weird. Like people have been pointing this out, and yeah, it's very odd to do that. It's like shooting yourself in the foot, because no matter which way you go, you're probably gonna lose. Well, on Wednesday, we went over a large surge in Nintendo stocks after Pokemon Let's Go Eevee and Pikachu were announced. This spike came close to nearly a 4% increase in stock, showing the excitement investors have around the future of Pokemon on Switch. Tariq Yaslin says, Spawn seems upset. Nope, I was just tired. It was a long night that night before, covering all the Pokemon stuff, the build up to it. It was just a long stretch of video editing and recording and just a lot of stuff happening that was going on at the time. I was just, if I seemed kind of like frustrated or annoyed in that video, I was probably just tired. That's all. Squidwood says, my only issue is the price. How can Pokemon Let's Go be $60 a piece when the new 2019 Pokemon will be priced at $60? Let's Go games should be $30 to $40. So here's the thing about that. They know they can get that kind of money, so they're not going to discount it. Whether you find the value in it or not, Pokemon fans will find the value in it, because no matter what, they're going to get their money for it. In fact, if they release it at a lower price, they would be telling you that it's a lesser than game to them, and I don't think that's the case. I think they want this Let's Go series to continue on past these two. I don't think this is like a one-off. I think they're going to continue, because think about it, they can do Let's Go, pretty much anything coming out. Let's Go Cyndaquil, Let's Go Totodile, and they keep going to the next generation of Pokemon and everything. They can continue this series, and it can be an every other year thing, and that would give their team more time to work on the next console version of the mainline series. So basically, you'd be getting Pokemon every year, because of course if you go up to the consoles, I think there's going to be more development time for that with the Switch, because obviously it's going to be more work than the 3DS, I would say, to be honest. So that makes sense why they would do that, and I think it's just going to be an alternating year thing. I think they want Let's Go to be its own franchise, its own series, and then the mainline Pokemon games to be next to it, alternating every year. So no, they don't want to sell it for $30 to $40, because they want people to believe that it is a full-fledged game, and honestly, we haven't seen enough about it even yet. People are looking at it because of some of the things that they've said when it comes to you not actually battling wild Pokemon, but just capturing them. But apparently you still battle against computer opponents and, I guess, other players. So we don't really know everything about it. We haven't even played it yet, because it's, I guess, a remake of Yellow, essentially, and Yellow was a pretty large game when you really think about it. It was on a Game Boy, and it was seriously bigger than a lot of console games at the time on, the Super Nintendo or the Nintendo and the Sega and everything, and then eventually the N64. So no, I wouldn't think about it too much in that sense. It's just the Pokemon brand is very valuable, and they're not going to undersell it. If anything, they might have even tried to oversell. I mean, they're going to try to oversell it, right? They're going to give us two $60 versions. So if you want both, you're spending $120. Thursday, we went over a clarification for the Pokemon Let's Go games. Originally, during the Q&A, it was reported by those attending the event that there would be no online compatibility. Later on, IGN managed to clarify this in an interview with developers that both versions of Let's Go will incorporate online play for battling and trading. Fallout 76 was also announced, with more information coming at E3. Musharna Mush says, rip Fallout 6 to 75. So they really want this to be viewed as its own thing. I think that's why it's so far off from like Fallout 4 or even a Fallout 5 or anything. Like they just said Fallout 76. Of course, that also makes sense in the lore with Vault 76 and everything and what they're pushing towards, but they do not want you to think this is part of the mainline series. They want you to realize on your own that this is an absolute spin-off, and it is. They could have also just named it something else, kind of like how they did Fallout New Vegas, for example. They could have just named it something, but I guess they wanted to incorporate the lore very closely, as they're saying, because this appears to be like an online style game. We've heard of survival, for example, online survival style game. People have been a little concerned about that, but no, this is definitely something they want us to know about as not being like it part of the main series and just being kind of a fun little spin-off project for them. And we're going to see at E3 what we have here. Now, there's also been some reports coming out that it is actually a very deep online RPG experience. It just is going to have multiplayer and I guess a survival aspect to it. So we're definitely finding out more about E3 as they are even prepping some buildings, some hotel buildings, how they like to paint the murals and stuff. They have some where it's Fallout. So this is going to be a big thing for Bethesda at this E3. So I don't think it's going to be a small second thought spin-off game. I think this is going to be a big thing for them. Finally, on Friday, we talked about a big leak from a printing company in LA showing several games to be shown at E3 for the Nintendo Switch. These games include Dragon Ball FighterZ and Fortnite, to name a few. Assassin's Creed Odyssey was also announced with more information to come at E3. Enjoy0555 says DBZ is too late coming to Switch. The competitive FGC is on PS4, and by the time DBZ is out on Switch, it'll be cheap on the PS4. Plus, the Switch has like one arcade stick, I think. It's just not as viable as a system for fighters. Lack of game invites, voice chat, fight sticks. I just hope that the Switch can keep it locked at 60 frames per second for those that pick it up on the system. So, the thing about the Switch version that's very interesting to people, as much as it may not be for you watching or maybe your friends or whoever, the portable aspect is certainly interesting to the competitive scene. I'm going to tell you why. So, we used to hold tournaments heavily back when I would kind of work at stores. We would hold tournaments for things like Tekken. And Tekken was also on the PSP, and something I noticed heavily were the people who are really into it and show up to win every time, right? They show up, they are serious, they got their customized fight sticks, and they got like their gloves on and everything, and they even bring a towel and the white sweat off and everything. They actually would show up with the PSP version of Tekken and practice when it was not their turn, because the two were close enough to where they could actually practice in between turns. Like, they would actually use their PSP version, try to get their combos right before they show up on the big, the big screen against their opponent that actually meant something. And I thought about that, and I said that would make sense as long as the Switch version and portable mode is basically the same controller inputs and everything, the same speed. Not necessarily the same visual style, because the PSP version of Tekken was definitely not the same visual style as the PS3 at the time. Not at all. But as long as it controls the same, it feels the same, it's 60 frames per second and everything, people competitively will probably buy it just for that. And also, of course, it's easier for them to take it around to things like conventions or any little meetups and stuff that they do. It'd probably be easier to bring that version with you than throw your PlayStation 4 or your Xbox in your backpack and go. I think that's actually going to be a big plus for the fighting game competitive community. And of course, casual fans who wanted it on the Switch in the first place will be buying it there. If anything, Xenoverse 2 showed us that the Dragon Ball community actually seems in with the Switch. Kakashi-san says, yeah, real leaks. Can't wait to come back to this video and mock whoever believed all these leaks. Well, Fortnite got rated on the Switch, so that's happening. There was an update done to Paladins like 2 days ago, and they found, after data mining, references to the eShop and buying crystals that are in the game. Paladins is a free-to-play game, which I actually used to play Paladins on the PC, and I thought it was fun. It's basically a free Overwatch type clone, kind of. So think of it that way, where you have different heroes and you kind of work together with different abilities to, like, they have a cart that you push to the end, for example, stuff like that. No, this is definitely a thing. Everything you saw on that list is happening. Paladins, like I said, they data mined the update recently. They even changed the Joy-Con colors that's already in Paladins. And then they updated the eShop so that you can buy crystals with the references in Paladins. So yeah, everything you saw on the list is correct. There are other people out there right now, I'm going to tell you this, that are using that template that we saw to try to put other logos on it. So more than likely, you're going to see some other ones kind of get thrown around out there, and I'd be very careful with those ones. The one that we saw here, though, with of course, Paladins and Fortnite and all that stuff, Dragon Ball FighterZ, that is all real. You're going to see that at E3, and it's going to be very interesting, mostly because Paladins and even Fortnite could drop at any time because they're free-to-play games. So we'll see what happens. I think Paladins and Fortnite will both be out this summer either way. So I guess if you're fans of hero shooters or battle royale modes, I guess get excited for it because they're coming. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for the Saturday show. If you guys enjoyed this video, hit the like button, really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave a bunch of comments down below about everything we talked about today, whether it is the list of leaks with Dragon Ball FighterZ and stuff. Do you think Dragon Ball FighterZ is going to sell on the Switch, even though it's been out for a while? On the PS4 and the Xbox One. It's also going to depend on when it launches as well. I mean, it might actually come out less than a year after the others, but we saw what happened with Xenoverse 2, right? I mean, that actually sold, I believe, better in Japan on the Switch than it did on the PS4. So people might even buy it again just for the portable nature of it, especially if you travel a lot. You're probably going to buy it on the Switch. We have to see about performance, though. We need a clean 60 frames per second, or even fighting game communities are going to be like, why would I buy that one? So I get that. But also, let me think about the Pokemon Let's Go, PUBG suing Fortnite, and anything else talked about, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys later on tonight for Spawncast. That's 9 p.m. Eastern Time.